It's a new year and a new chance for you to make a fresh start with your compliance. We're going to be bringing you a daily tip, strategy, or idea that you can use to improve your program. Here's your host, Tom Fox, the Compliance Evangelist.
We're going to have a quick word from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. What is the best single-author handbook for a best practices compliance program? I would humbly submit to you that it is the Compliance Handbook, 5th edition, by myself, Tom Fox. It's published by LexisNexis, and it's designed to give you information on how to improve your compliance program literally across an entire year. Each entry has 3 key takeaways of things you can do at little or no cost for your compliance program. I'm going to link to it in the show notes, so check out the Compliance Handbook, 5th edition. Day 25, responding to investigative findings. There is nothing like an internal whistleblower report about a compliance violation, the finding of such an issue, or a subpoena from the DOJ or notice letter from the SEC to trigger the board of directors and senior management attention to the compliance function and the company's compliance program. Such an event can trigger much gnashing of teeth and expressions of outrage, following immediately by proclamations, quote, "We are an ethical company," end quote. However, it may well be time for a very serious reality check. You may find yourself in a position that you will have to have some very frank discussions about what to expect in terms of cost and time outlays. While much of these discussions will focus on the investigative processes and those costs, these discussions will allow you to initiate the talk about remediation going forward and begin to explain why money must be budgeted for the remediation process. One of the things rarely considered is how the investigation triggers the remediation process and what the relationship is between the two. When issues arise warranting an investigation that would rise to the board of directors level and potentially require disclosure to the government, there's usually a flurry of activity and attention. Everyone wants to know what is going on. As Russ Berlin has noted, for a short time you'll have everyone's full attention, yet it can be a tricky place because you can get your 15 minutes to really get everyone's full attention, and from then on, you're fighting with everyone else for their attention, like most normal things in business. You need to explain the cost to the board and senior management. You need to be upfront and candid and firmly stating, to get to this place, this is what it's going to cost. Moreover, you need to be able to show how some companies paid very large amounts, not just in the eventual fine and penalty, but also in other costs, such as shareholder lawsuits, claims, and post-resolution costs. We want to show you how people have lost money by having to write big checks because they didn't take these allegations seriously. One of the most difficult parts of an investigation is it often done in a way which the investigators will want to maintain as tight a control over information and privilege as they possibly can. The remediation requires output from the investigation to understand where the risk points and gaps are, both in the compliance programs and internal controls. There is a tension, and it needs to be structured in a way that information can be shared with those who are designing the remediation without fear of compromising the information coming forward. You cannot find gaps in your compliance system until you stress test it. Viewed in this light, your compliance failures can be viewed as the ultimate stress test. Well, guess what? You just got handed a stress test, and this is where the system broke down. So you know there's a gap. Absent an investigation, as painful and difficult as that is, that gap would have just been sitting there. The investigation will raise information to you about the failures of your compliance program you may not have known previously existed. While there will be a desire by some folks not to give out information about the investigation until it is completed and a final report, you must resist this at all costs. If the results of the investigation are not made available to you as the Chief Compliance Officer or the compliance professional charged with remediation your compliance program, your remediation will be extremely difficult. There should be a solid line of communication between the people who are doing the investigation and the people who are leading the remediation. Otherwise, you can only begin your remediation in the most general terms, and you will not be able to deal with the specific gaps in your compliance program or the risks that need to be managed. Such an approach is also a recipe for disaster. First and foremost, the DOJ will not give you credit, and you may lose types of benefits under the corporate enforcement policy. Moreover, the executive attention will be dissipated, and you will have lost your momentum to clean things up. Yet there are even more points about this that you should make to your employees and those in your audience as well. So what are today's 3 key takeaways? Number 1, a serious FCPA investigation gets the attention of board and your senior management. Use this time to move the compliance program forward. Number 2, be aware of how your investigation can impact and even inform your remediation efforts, recognizing the DOJ's requirement of the need for speed. Number 3, be prepared to deal with the dreaded "where else" question. I hope you'll join me tomorrow on day 26, where we take a look at CCO authority and independence. I know you'll enjoy tomorrow's episode. I hope you will join me for the rest of 31 days to a more effective compliance program, where we take a deep dive into your overall compliance program. Thank you for listening to this episode of 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program. 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program is a part of the Compliance Podcast Network. If you'd like more information on any of the topics of this month's series, 31 Days to a More Effective Compliance Program, check out The Compliance Handbook 5th edition, available from LexisNexis. You can check it out at lexisnexis.com/Fox. I know you will find it useful and enjoy it. Thanks so much for listening.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.